committee meeting. And today is August 21st, and it's 9 a.m. And would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Jenny, could we have a roll call, please?
We can. I'm hoping that the meeting has started on the live feed here because I'm just getting some kind of clocking here, so hopefully it will pick up in a moment. Member Panic?
Here.
Member Kurzman?
Here.
Member Welch?
Here.
Member Stevens?
Here.
Chair Rothenberger?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Jenny. First thing we have this morning is a presentation from Nancy Stevens, and a little bit of quick background. She's lived here for almost 4 years. She's been very, very active in volunteering. She works with the Dune Savers, Florida Native Plant Society, Beach Ambassadors, Sea Turtle Trackers. She studied biology, botany, and most recently, specific to what she's talking about today, she's certified as an advanced plant identification person. And she is today going to talk about the Dune Savers efforts in St. Pete Beach. It's all yours.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Okay, so as Dan mentioned, I'm Nancy Stevens, and I'm here today as part of the Dune Savers of St. Pete Beach, and the Dunces are property owners, volunteer groups. We are groups of volunteers that meet weekly, and we take actions to keep the dunes of our island healthy and happy. This guy. Okay. Just this, or this. Okay, so the Dune Savers started as an idea at Treasure Island in 2023. And then the St. Pete Beach Dune Savers was a copied effort and started as a group by Deb Rothenberger for our island, St. Pete Beach, in January of 2024. And then I sort of made a second franchise with the DCPOC Dune Savers starting in May. Again, just a copy. What we do is we go out and we identify and remove invasive and non-native plants by hand to make space for the native dune-friendly plants to grow and thrive. Deb, our leader, is a master gardener, and Deb and I have both taken advanced plant identification classes just this past April. That is through the University of Florida IFAS extension. To these work days, we bring our own tools and supplies and volunteers, but we work with the city of St. Pete Beach to work within agreed upon locations for permitting and parking passes, but really, very importantly, they bring the totters that they deliver, which are trash cans, but they're clean, and we load those up and they remove that and remove the debris for us. We work for about an hour at a time on Fridays and Tuesdays because it gets hot. All right, so I'm gonna try to wow you with some numbers. So year to date, so just starting in January, we have more than 670 volunteer hours, and that is just out in the dunes, cleaning up the trash, the plants. We have worked for 30 Friday mornings and 12 Tuesday mornings. We have removed an estimated 220 cubic yards of invasive plants, trash, and debris. Where we have worked, so we have made one pass through Pass-a-Grille Beach before the dune restoration started, but good news is we kind of made one pass through there. And then we have also worked, we kind of started at Upham Beach and started working, and we've been there for, I don't know, probably 8 or so weeks. And we have just made it just from that one walkover just to about the Sunset Grill. And then sort of in Mid-Island, we're working at, because it's a private property, it's the Don Cesar property owners, and we have made a little progress working at about from like Cabrillo, and we just started working at the entrance by the Don Cesar property owners, by the Suntan Art Center. So real quick, I just wanted to review, well, you know, what is, there's a lot of different words, but what's an invasive plant, non-native plant, an aggressive plant? So invasive plants are like non-native species introduced generally by human activity. So whether that was brought here, sold at a nursery, or on, you know, mechanical equipment, or however, you know, on car tires, things like that. But the invasive plants outgrow and replace Florida's native dune plants. And then when the plants aren't there, the associated wildlife that goes along with them. They can alter the natural processes that happen. I put fire and water flow, you know, inland, but more for us today, talking about the stability of our shorelines. Non-native is, other words used for that are also exotic or alien or introduced. And those are all synonyms for non-native. And basically, a non-native, which might be native to the United States, it doesn't have a natural range that includes Florida, or what I would like to do be is specifically for our dunes of the West Coast of Florida. Their presence can often have negative impacts on endemic ecosystems. And then aggressive plants are species, so again, that could be a native plant, native to South Carolina or somewhere else. That is still the United States, but aggressive plants, again, usually because of human disturbance, but they spread rapidly and can outcompete the other plant species. Aggressive plants, again, can be native or non-native, and sometimes they're aggressive in certain situations, but not others. Here's just a look at some of the things that we're seeing out there, and these are the biggies that we see. So maybe you are familiar with them, but the African fountain grass, we have mother of millions. Some people call them Christmas bells, but it's mother of millions. And the asparagus fern. These are all Category 1 species and troublemakers that are changing up our native plant communities. There's also Category 2 species, like a mother-in-law's tongue. And basically, they're on the watch list to see if they'll start to affect the native plants, and they may be removed from the Category 1 or 2 and put into a Category 1. And that is re-examined every 2 years. Here's the last 3 of it. We've got the Brazilian pepper, mother-in-law's tongue, carrot wood. Nursery sales of these weeds are prohibited, and these plants should not only be not planted, but they also should be removed. So why should we have Florida native dune plants? Well, the native dune plants of West Florida are those which evolved locally over thousands of years to the hostile environment that occurs within our beach dune region as a result of natural processes. They're adapted to the high summer temperatures, drought conditions, low nutrient levels, unstable sands, and saltwater intrusions. And then remember, the insects, birds, and animals adapted along too with them. Our coastal native plants stabilize the dunes, which in turn provide the habitat for coastal and migratory birds and nesting areas for sea turtles. The first picture there is the Gulf fritillary butterfly. It lives its entire life cycle on a Florida native passion flower vine. There are two. We have some growing in the dunes. So, for instance, you could purchase a non-native Florida passion vine. This butterfly, native to our area, might choose to eat it and lay its eggs there. What happens, or not, they won't eat it. They will lay their eggs there. When the cats, which are the baby caterpillars, emerge, they then do not have a food source, and they're stranded. They're stuck on this not, sustainable passion flower vine. Okay, so here's the good stuff. The 6 most common native dune plants, and there are many more that we see out there, is, of course, our sea oats, which I call our workhorses of the dunes. We have our dune sunflower, beach morning glory, railroad vine. They look very similar. These common coastal plants and many more keep our island's seawall of the west up and running. Also, we see out there beach tea, our sable palm, that's our state tree, sea grapes, and again, these dune systems act as a buffer between the high energy of the ocean and the land, and dunes provide a barrier for the high tides and storm surges and protects our land behind the dunes from erosion. Okay, so here's some images of us all out there working in the dunes. I like to call it delicate demo, as we try to be careful of the good stuff and just take out what needs to be taken out. But a reminder, as the beach is our primary contributor of the economy and stability of our island, the Dune Savers and the city, we work together to restore, preserve, and bring education and awareness to citizens and visitors on our seawall of the West. So, we have an exciting opportunity, which is our sea oak planting. This is this coming Saturday, in case anyone hasn't heard. 7:30 to 10:30, you don't have to come for the whole time. You can come out just to come see what we're doing, plant a few sea oats, water a few sea oats. We can point out, we can teach. We're working, we also have included Keep Pinellas Beautiful, the St. Pete Beach Ambassadors, Florida Native Plant Society, the Passagrille Women's Club, the Don Cesar property owners, are all other contributors to the advertising of this event. And we also invite you, the Beach Stewardship Committee, to come on out and see what we're doing, to really get out there. Other things you can do to help save our dunes is if you want to come out and volunteer, but then also if you'd like to learn more, we have a little link on the city website that'll take you to IACO or and then to Deb or myself. And then you can learn, you can look at the plant directory from the UF-IFAS extension. And for invasive and aquatic plants, you can join the Florida Native Plant Society or our cleanups. We can also remove our invasive plants. You can, from your own yard, condos, businesses, and city properties. As a group, we can add money for removal to the city budget, I think especially for the trees. We can preserve by do not buy, plant, or allow the use of invasives because these plants do not know boundaries. Just because we said this is my yard doesn't mean that it will jump. We can make a list of forbidden plants in the city ordinances, and we can enforce the 50% natives when people put in landscaping plans. The new plan is supposed to include 50% natives. Education to spread the word, just knowing that there is even something for native, in dune plants to not. And then mostly I'd also just like to say thank you and let you know that we are encouraged every week by the progress we're making. And again, if you're interested in making a difference for our beach, come join the Dune Savers team for a single event or for weekly cleanups, as much as you like. No experience is necessary, and you can learn about the native dune plants and how we can help preserve our coastal community. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy, very much.
All right.
Questions?
Oh, sure.
I had trouble, I really like the presentation and the information and the work you guys are doing. I had trouble because I took a picture of what was the fountain grass,
Okay.
and then I took a picture of the sea oats, and I'm not very good at this. They look very similar to me. How do you discern the difference?
So one of the easiest ways is the flower of it. So the African grass has a puffy thing, like a sea
good one
oat.
or the bad
A sea oat has a flat. It's very flat and it looks like oats.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if you know, like, it looks like oats, but it's very flat. So like like this, where the African one, it looks like a caterpillar. It's round and has a little point. Puffy. It's
And that's
puffy.
the bad one? That's a good one?
That's the bad one,
Okay.
right. But we have, like, for instance, it grows to the exact same height, and it basically likes all the same things as we have a native muhly grass. It's pink, it's beautiful, and, but it's like something you can literally, like, one for one. You can literally just pull out the African stuff and just pop in a pink muhly grass, which, is doing all these great things. And the non-native just, like, it's not really sustaining any animals or anything, but, and sure, it's pretty, but it needs to be pretty like in Africa. That's what, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Yes.
Nancy, thank you so much for what you're doing and everybody else who's doing it. It's interesting that we can be 50% corrupt, huh? We can have 50% non-native invasive plants, but at the same time, they're listed as outlawed, so there's kind of a contradiction there. But be that as it may.
I
You're
think,
referring to the city
Yes.
ordinance of 50?
50% ordinance.
We could,
We can be 50% corrupt, John.
yeah.
I think what they're saying is, when you add new landscaping, we're not asking people to go out and rip out all their landscaping.
Oh, I know.
Oh, you do know?
I'm
Okay.
just making an observation.
Well, and the other interesting thing, just going back, is that when you look at like the tax maps, the Pinellas County taxes the property owners to the outside of the dunes, or to the outside of to the water side of the marsh.
Okay.
They don't tax them for the dry sand, but they generally tax them for the marshland. So when you get into property issues, obviously, dealing with Upham or the county beach or these areas, this is, clearly city-owned property, no conflict. But you mentioned Don Cesar, and then, like any wall, a wall is only as effective as, covering the entire width of it. What's the approach going to be when you get involved with private property owners?
And again, we'll need to take that, as much as we have put a lot of hours in, like, we are just chugging along. So, like, we were just out cleaning on Friday and, or Tuesday, yesterday. And, part of it is we say to ourselves, like, okay, don't look up, because sometimes it can be so daunting. So, yes, so right now I have, we're able to work there. And we need to come up with a sort of a system or a program or something to approach other homeowners and see if they would like for us to help. If they say no, then it's no. But but we don't have that kind of manpower yet. We haven't gotten that far.
Okay, very good.
But it's in the bank as far as.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy, very much.
I'd like to point out in the presentation, there were some pictures, and our chairman was in many of those pictures and is out there almost every Friday working hard to save our dunes. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome. It's been a good experience. I'd suggest that you all try it. Come out one day. It's good. Our next item is to approve today's agenda. So do I have a motion?
I've got a couple changes that I'd like to, or additions I'd like to make to it. First off, I have an item to discuss the method for adding things to the agenda, because there seemed to have been some discussion and confusion when I tried to add items to this agenda. So I'd like to add an item called the process of adding items to the agenda. Next, give me 1 second, I closed it because here we are. Next, we've discussed before the communications to beach stewards. And I'd like to add an item about communications to beach stewards, because there's been discussions at city commission meetings about boorish and loudish behavior on the beach. There's been various incidents at trade winds and Dolphin Beach where items reported. And so, making sure that the beach stewards are kept in the loop to at least be notified is something we've been talking about. So the communications to the beach stewards should be an item. The third item would be the Reddington decision. So this happened in the last, about 8 days ago. Reddington had a lawsuit about customary use that had been going on for a long time. And that's now been settled. And I let Matt know, that Mr. McConnell, our attorney, that I was going to try to add that to the agenda so that we could just get a legal perspective on what the meaning of that might mean for St. Pete Beach as the third item. And then the fourth one is business tax receipts, BTRs. All BTRs expire September 30th each year. And the beach stewards are responsible for providing input on policy regarding, public beach and so forth to the city commission. And there's been a lot of discussion on our ordinance discussions about where chairs should be on the beach. And these BTRs cover giving commercial properties or franchises the rights and saying, hey, you can have a business where you're renting out chairs or putting out chairs. So it seemed important that prior to September 30th, there be some sort of discussion about what the policy should be, because one of the complaints, for instance, was that chairs were going all the way to the beach, but they're not, quote, cabana chairs. They're just rental chairs. So the question of business tax receipts, we have a deadline looming that I didn't realize was September 30th. So the fourth item would be discussing just, again, the policy for chairs or anything else related to BTRs. That would be my 4 additions. Thank you.
Discussion. I personally feel like the tax receipt thing would be something we do at a totally different meeting. So I think that's going to take a long time.
I don't believe we could solve it. I just want to get it out there.
BTRs are a Florida statute that is controlled by that. The renewals are already out, so I think there's not much we can do.
Well, but I've seen them, and I've seen, at least maybe I'm confusing the term.
The tax table regarding the BTRs are a Florida statute.
I've seen maps that show, where they can put things.
That's a permit, that's not a BTR.
Okay, and that's not tied to that?
Two separate things, no.
Okay, so then we could
We'll scratch that.
we could scratch that then for now.
And Mr. Digman, is this a good day to discuss the Reddington Beach?
Happy to discuss it.
Okay.
I've read all 55 pages of it.
All right, good. I would say that we go with those 3.
Could I just ask, though, since we just shelved that, When do those permits happen? You said that it's a permit. Are those permits coinciding with the BTRs?
No.
So those just happen at
Depends
random
when they
times?
are given the permit initially and then annually renewed.
Okay,
So
thank
if
you.
they get it in October 15th, it would be October 15th.
So it's
following.
regardless?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Jenny, so we have 3 additional items, and do you have them? No? Okay, and we will do those at the end of our regular, okay, good. All right,
We just need a motion to approve it with those changes.
I make a motion to approve the changed appended agenda.
second.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Yes?
Member Welch?
Yes.
Member Stevens?
Yes?
Member Panic?
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Now we have audience comments for anything that's on non-agenda item. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk to us about? Okay.
Just have turtles to talk about as far as the beach renourishment goes and stuff like that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
My name is Joe Widlansky, and everybody knows me as Turtle Joe. And I work with sea turtle trackers, and we do all the sea turtle nest monitoring on St. Pete Beach, as well as some other places like Shell Key. And just quickly going over some of the numbers from this year is we actually had a pretty terrible year, and we had 27 nests on St. Pete Beach this year, as opposed to last year we had 70 on St. Pete Beach. And you do get different turtles nesting every year, so last year's turtles are not the same ones that are nesting this year. Why the numbers are so low, it has a lot to do with there's no beach for them to nest on, to be, you know, the north end of Upham Beach. There's, because of the renourishment, what they did this time, you know, they left the beach, and if you go out there north of the Don Cesar and look north, you'll see there's no beach profile whatsoever. I mean, it's just dead flat. The water can come up 6 inches. It'll come up all the way up to the dunes at high tide. And unfortunately, that's not good for the turtles at all. So any nests they lay that are not in the dunes are going to get washed away. We know that going in because there's no beach profile. What they're doing now is they're leaving it flat and then building a wee big mountain, you know, for the dune that is really, it doesn't allow the turtles to go up into the dunes because it's so high up. So they don't go up and nest up in there. And I don't know why this particular renourishment is different than all the other ones that we've had. And no matter where they put the sand, it's gonna wash out eventually. They haven't even finished anything on the renourishment, and it's already all washed away from Debbie. So the storm impact on our nest was that we lost 4 nests completely. We lost 8 more that were washed out. We have 10 nests remaining, but probably only 2 of those are going to hatch because the other 8 got washed over and was washed over for hours. So we do need the beach renourishment, but I mean, I just don't know whose idea it was to make mountains instead of like sand dunes. like that look like a natural sand dune where a turtle can actually go up and nest in the dunes because that's where they're safest. The only, well, totally, last year we had 70 nests, like I said, and my big problem is, honest to God, is code enforcement. If any of you have been on the beach from Don Cesar south, it's nothing but lawn chairs, people with the, what do they call those, the chairs, the plastic ones. You all know what they've been around forever. But there's just a wall of them there, and they're actually in the dunes over there. And nobody, for years, I've been begging to get the city to remove them and then let the people come and take them, because I think what's happening is that you got all the short timers, so the actual owners are not there, and the people who rent short time, they don't know that those chairs are not supposed to be there, so they just go on and on year after year, and we have obstructions with the sea turtles all the time.
Joe, are you talking south of the Don, the private properties?
South of the Don, yes. All those Adirondack chairs, I guess they call them. So the dunes are very important for the sea turtles to nest in. They're very important for the dunes. The eggshells from the sea turtles, when they hatch, they stay in the ground and disintegrate, and they make nutrients for the plants that are actually in the dunes, because there's no nutrients really in beach sand. So they have to get their nutrients where they can, and sea turtle eggs are actually a big source of that, a lot bigger than people think. So that's how sea turtles can affect land. In the water, they are, their main job is to keep the populations down on whelks, conchs, things like that, crabs, all stuff that would go crazy in the environment if there was nothing to eat them. And it's only fair because as soon as the babies hatch, everything tries to eat them. So it kind of goes both ways. But I really just want to emphasize the importance of the dunes, and just I wish they had done it different. I wish they hadn't made mountains instead of molehills out of those dunes. It's just not natural, let's put it that way. And I don't know if it was John Bishop, he had his hand in there with the other guy up in the county, and why they did that, I don't know. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do. Are you all still working on Shell Key?
Yes.
And how do the numbers there look?
They look absolutely horrible because of there's no beach for them to nest on. It was all taken out. As soon as they're done renourishing St. Pete Beach, that'll all wash over to Shell Key, and then they'll have plenty of beach, you know. So it's a kind of an up and down thing depending on hurricanes, really. You know, we get whacked pretty much every year now with at least a strong tropical storm, and it does a number on the dunes.
I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
I'm wondering who we could reach out to as a city about this profile of the sand dunes that you mentioned, because it's not just an issue of the turtles. It's also goes back to the first speaker about the dunes. I mean, if you want to picture, it sounds to me like it already looks like pre-eroded. That if you have your beach and then you just have a wall of sand, and then have a dune, how could you expect that to be providing you protection?
Yeah.
I would expect that you'd want to have a gradual slope the whole way.
You would think so.
And yes, it takes more sand to do that, because now you have to fill that whole area into to the height of your mountain instead of a wall. But otherwise,
Yeah.
you know, everything's just going to make that settle down. So I'm wondering if there's anyone we could.
It's a county project, and Public Works is the direct liaison with the city that works with the county on that, so I could bring that up to.
Could you share that with them? That would be good.
Clerk.
And then you mentioned code enforcement, and you were focusing on the wall, the Donzazor South.
Yeah.
You know, I was out recently this last weekend into Donzazor North, and I still see hotels where they have outdoor walkways and white lights. And if ever there's a way to say "screw you" to the city or to the turtles, it's like, come on, it's a light bulb. Just change your light bulbs. I don't understand how. And our ordinance says even for pre-existing condition, even for, you know, back when they did the ordinance 10 to 15 years ago, whatever it was, it said if you already have it, you only have to change the bulbs. Well, so they've had all these years to change the bulbs.
Look,
I don't understand.
Unfortunately, you get a lot of turnover with ownership, like the Dolphin Beach Resort down there is under new ownership, and the old ownership had red lights everywhere. They were like turtle safe. I mean, they were like the model for the beach. And then the new owners came in and changed lights out. It was the same thing with the Beachcomber. You know, they had all the boardwalk going out to the beach was all nice red lights and, you know, just the whole thing. And then they get new owners and they change all the lights out. And it's a continuing battle. We'll see what the Trade Winds does now with their
That's what. Yeah.
project. I'll just call it their project.
It shouldn't take a project to change some light bulbs.
Yeah. That's right. It shouldn't. And
And then my third question was that, just tying back to the first presenter too, you mentioned the value of the sea turtle shells for the nutrients, which is helpful for the dunes.
yes,
So, is it permissible for people not people, for some entity to be providing nutrients, not sea turtle eggs, but to help the dunes? Maybe we should have a program not just of pulling invasives, but should we be adding nutrients to the dunes if we could do that?
that wouldn't be the worst idea I ever heard.
Okay.
Nobody's ever brought that up before.
I made a comment on that, because I have suggested for years that we don't sweep up the seaweed and let it go into the dune, because that's a wonderful nutrient and also collects sand. The other thing is, I hope nobody in this room thinks that turtles and dunes are more important than tourists and development in the state of Florida.
I do.
You do. I may in my heart, but I'm talking about the way things are practiced,
Yes.
laws.
Yeah. They could use some tinkering with, we'll call it that way. And you guys are the beach stewardship committee, so sort of in your hands where we go from here.
I think we're building on something here, because I actually communicated to Ayuko since the last meeting. I guess I could say it in public now because we're all together. And I said something about removal of things. And she said, well, you know, normally we remove artificial things like plastic and things that wash up,
Yeah.
but we don't remove things like seaweed that's good for the beach, because it helps feed the birds and other wildlife. But if we do ever get in a situation where we do have to sweep, I'm wondering if they could at least make sure they sweep up to the dunes or into the dunes, if that's allowed. You know, because you don't want things growing in the middle of the sand, but you do want them to grow in the dunes.
Well, the dunes grow because things grow in the sand. If you watch the progress of dunes, the little things stick their fingers up in the beach, and the next thing you know, that's another dune. That's the way they grow.
Right, well, I think that goes against your
towards the
model of
beach.
wanting the people to
The
be
model
there.
they used in Upham is the same one they've used all over the East Coast, of just making a round dune. But what they do is slope the beach. There is no beach to slope in Upham, and Upham, I mean, not Upham, Pass Grill, they need space for tourists. If they sloped that straight from the Gulf up to the dune, the tourists would have no place to put their umbrellas and stuff.
Well, it's not that they would be sloping the dune, they would be sloping the beach.
Yeah, exactly.
What's wrong with that?
That's fine.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, except that there's no place for tourists to put their blankets and stuff.
Well, we're not making the dunes go all the way down to the water. There's
think in-
plenty of open beach
No,
for tourists.
A dune and then a gradual slope.
Yeah.
And there's just no room in Upham. I'm there all the time. I don't mean Upham, I mean Pass Grill. Upham is a mess.
Oh,
The
but-
building was allowed to be built there.
Yes.
Our beach is a mess because we've allowed the building all over the place.
Yeah.
So, my theory is everybody leave the beach.
Okay.
We are the most invasive
We'll
creature.
move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people can put their head at the high end and they'll be happy.
Yep. That would be great if it was nothing but a barrier island again. You know, they're supposed to move inland a mile a year, a barrier island to protect the mainland. And because of human development, that doesn't happen anymore. So the barrier islands are not really doing the job they're supposed to be doing, other than making insurance rates go up every time we get a storm. You know, people, you know, get hammered on their insurance if you live down near the water. So,
Thank you, Joe.
anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Turtle Joe.
I actually have a question you might know the answer to. I think I read in one of Fran's new updates that they were doing an audit of turtle lighting, and the results were gonna come in at some point. I might have misread
Joe
that.
might have can help with that, because code enforcement indicated to me we were supposed to get something from the county, hopefully Monday, so we left it on the agenda in hopes that we got it. We have not got it. Do you know
The lighting survey?
the audit?
Oh, I thought it was,
You'd have to talk to Teresa about that.
So, yeah,
I thought the city was doing it. It wasn't the city doing it, it was somebody
the
else.
actual audit is done through the county, that they work
Okay.
with the sea turtle trackers, but our code enforcement does their own enforcement, but the audit itself is done by the county.
If they're waiting on the lighting survey, it'll be today. Pete will have it, the latest and greatest.
Yeah, we just don't have it for
Okay.
the meeting today.
When that's available, can that be sent out?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is the approval of the minutes, May 15th, and the special meeting we had on June 18th. Can I get a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay.
Second?
All right.
Member Welch?
Yes.
Member Stevens?
Yes.
Member Panic?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Our next message, let's see, our next item is election of committee officers. But before we do that, I would like to recognize Joe Mulholland, our newest commissioners for District 4. Joe, thank you very much for coming. Definitely.
You know, maybe I think you celebrated a 10-year anniversary with the city attorney, so I just want to say thank you for 10 years of service and appreciate everything you've done.
That's been my pleasure.
Okay. We need a motion to appoint the committee chair for 2024 and 2025.
To appoint or nominate?
It says to appoint.
To appoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Aren't there's two new city commissioners. Have they already made their intents clear that they're leaving everybody alone? I know in my case they are.
And I think in District 4, they are as well.
Okay, then we're ready. Then I'll second it.
All right.
Excuse me, who made a motion to do what? I didn't hear it.
We haven't actually done that.
Oh, okay.
We have a motion to appoint, and then it's fill in the blank there.
I was ready to look.
Yeah, so we're looking for somebody for the
So
chair.
the question, are you willing and interested in serving as chairman till next spring?
Oh, I would definitely be up for that if you guys are not tired of me. Sure.
So
Don't,
I'll make a motion to renominate our chair to continue on in his position.
I'll second that.
Member Stevens?
Yes.
Member Panic?
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Yes.
Member Welch? Chair Rothenberger?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
okay. And now we need a motion to appoint the vice chair, 2024, 2025.
So, should we ask for volunteers?
No one else wants it, I'm happy to
Well,
do it.
I think that would be great. John's been out in the trenches. So,
That's all right.
I'll second that. I mean, I will nominate you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
If anybody else wants it, that's fine.
I'll second that. Sure.
Member Panic?
Yeah.
Member Kurzman?
Yes.
Member Welch?
Yes.
Member Stevens?
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you both.
Oh, thank you. All right. Now our items of discussion. Going to start right out with the beach lighting ordinance.
As far as the update on that, I believe your office that's working towards that, looking at the county.
Yeah, to my knowledge, we have not gotten very far on this. I'm not quite sure why. I'll have to look into it.
I think at the last the last special meeting, we had was one of that, and I know you guys are busy. You took the to-do to go out and take a look at that and report back. And again, I know you're busy, but perhaps at a next meeting, we can work together on that.
Okay.
Andrew, is there also a certain evaluation you have to go through after coming up with an ordinance to see if it affects people financially?
Absolutely. Florida law recently changed within the last year or two that when you adopt an ordinance, before you adopt the ordinance or at the time that it's presented to be adopted, you have to do an economic impact statement, which essentially describes what the economic impact will be of the ordinance.
That impact, though, is only compared to your current ordinance. So if you already require people to be changing their light bulbs, for instance, you'd only be looking at the impact beyond what's currently required, correct?
Counselor, if you know that better than me?
Asking.
No,
Asking.
no, you're stating that.
No, I was saying, would you only have to show the difference between the current and what you're changing, or is it some other metric?
The metric is stated in the statute on how to put it together. It's a fairly straightforward one, depending on the facts of where it is. I mean, being on the beach, there's obviously public and private property, so.
No, what I'm asking is, when you do an economic impact, is it the impact of what you're requiring, or is it the impact of what you're requiring relative to what you already used to require? So you're only making a small change. And you only talk about the impact of the small change, or do you talk about the impact of what your new ordinance will be, even though it's been, practically all of it's been in place prior?
The ordinance, all right, So basically, you just have to follow the matrix that's set out in the statute. And if this ordinance is superseding the new ordinance or the existing ordinance, you have to establish what the new ordinance impact will be. The scope of it would be whatever the scope of that is.
Relative to zero then, not relative to what your current ordinances are. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And Jennifer, could you follow up with Fran, and maybe this goes for B as well? As we're looking at these things, and you might know the answer, who from staff, and I exclude council, would be the owner of the beach light ordinance? As it originally was in the beach ordinance, and then we decided to
Do it out.
do like that. And then I'm going to have the same question, the beach ordinance. I know Matthew has been pushing that, but, so I'm going to ask who's the owner of that, because it's multidisciplined across the way the structure. But I just think getting things through an organization, having a point person on staff could help both of these. And you don't have to answer, maybe it's a conversation with Fran, is who would own either one of those?
At the end of the day, it's going to be planning department, but I have been working with Matthew on the beach ordinance for 3 years, so I would be the point person on that. We did break off the lighting aspect to it, and we are trying to move forward with bringing a lot of this to commission as soon as we can.
Okay, I just, with a lack of ownership, things don't get done, so it's just,
It's me by default.
that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Perhaps, just discuss it with Fran.
Okay, we'll move on to the beach ordinance update.
The only update I have on that is we worked with our GIS contractor that we have that has began the process of developing a map for all of our Cabana service areas and what the setbacks would look like at 75, at 50, at 30. So we can develop that business impact for each of those properties. And so that's where we're at with that. We were able to accomplish that, and I think that's what we heard from the last meeting, and we were able to get a draft of that. And then next up is to sit down with Fran to go over that and develop the business impact. And hopefully, our goal is to get something to the commission sometime in October.
Can I ask a little about that? When you talk about 75 feet, 50 feet, and 30 feet, is that to the cabana service, which is where they sell alcohol, or is that to the chair service where they rent and provide chairs?
Cabana service.
So
We
what-
permit the cabana service, we do not permit the chair service.
So that's
That's
just-
not in the cabana service.
that's just done with the BTR, the chair service?
That's part of their operations. It's not something we have to permit.
So they could put chairs anywhere, all the way to the water line?
No, we have setbacks that are in for our code. What was asked for the beach ordinance was specifically regarding our cabana service area.
Which code is it that dictates where the chairs go that are not cabanas service? Is that the beach ordinance code or some other code?
It's all one code. It's a code of ordinance.
So,
I think there was a discussion of bringing, are they allowed to keep them out all night, or do they have to bring them in? I don't know if, for
There's
the
also-
non-alcohol one.
there's also been discussion,
I'm sorry to, it just.
there's also been
trying to
discussion during the day, because there's been complaints about chairs covering the beach so much that people then from even those resorts end up going to the neighboring private properties and so forth. And I've been on, in these workshops for a couple of years now, and this has been a big discussion. It was a point of confusion, because sometimes people would say cabanas, and they thought they were talking about all the chairs, only to find out later that they meant alcohol-only cabanas. So that's why I'm looking to say, what is our rule about regular chairs then? Or should that not be part of this question of 75 feet, 50 feet, and 30 feet? It's only about whether you could buy a drink at the chair, but Otherwise, you can have the chairs everywhere. I mean, I don't know that that was what was meant.
Depending on the property and the property survey and the property ownership, I think dictates it's not one and the same. So we, the city, permit alcohol service areas.
And the BTR is what allows them to put out the non-alcohol chairs. that they
BTR is
rent,
not a
right?
permit. A BTR is a business tax receipt.
But that's where they get the authority to put out the chairs they rent for $20 a chair.
I think that allows them to do water sports. I don't know that BTRs include.
Oh, yes. I have a copy of the BTRs, and it's for the chairs, too. There's water sports, there's chairs, there's absolutely, every one of them has chairs on them.
I mean, Jennifer's,
I mean, you can go double check. I think we should double check, but that's why I brought up the BTR issue before.
Okay, well, the business tax receipt shows that they have water sports in their area, have to indicate how many jet skis. If they have recreational things on there is what has to be indicated in there, and that also incurs what their cost is.
But
I don't know that we get involved in how many chairs they have, but we do have a mean high water line. We do have some certain setbacks depending on where your hotel is, if it's by private property or not private property, and then each individual hotel owns to a certain point of the beach.
So you do have setbacks in the
And
requirements?
some,
for chairs.
depending, like if you are adjacent to a private property.
But nothing in regard to how close to the water you can get.
I believe there is something about the water in our ordinance. I can't rattle it off right now.
All right, and let me talk separate, a different thing about the beach ordinance, and that is based on Mr. Dickman's prior answer, where a business impact statement has to be done relative to zero, not relative to your current ordinances when you.
Mr. Kurtzman.
Yeah.
You're asking me these questions in advance. Do you want me to pull the statute and bring it back to you? Because you seem to be saying, based on Mr. Dickman's last, I mean, I don't have that right in front of me, so.
Well, I thought have you done a business impact statement yet?
Yes, of course.
Well, then, was it relative to the prior ordinance, or was it relative to nothing? I mean, that's the only reason I brought it up. And
Well,
the reason,
please don't cross-examine me.
no, but the reason I'm saying this, you're cross-examining me.
No, but I'm asking, if you want that information, I can get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
If you want more information about the business impact statement and be fully apprised of it, I'll get it to you, but don't start building an argument based on you just asking me a question on the fly.
Well, I just thought that
You just thought what?
you knew from having done business impact
I
statements.
think you know already.
No, I don't. I really don't know.
Yeah.
And if it's relative to zero, my suggestion would be that rather than us doing this B ordinance as a total rewrite, which will make the business impact statement reflect everything that we're doing in our beach ordinance, that we only actually change our beach ordinance in things that are actually changing, so that we don't have to open a can of worms on things that aren't changing and have to negotiate and show business impact for rules that already exist. And that was the only reason that I was bringing that up.
Why didn't you just say it like that?
Because I was basing it on because if that's not correct, and it is based on relative, because I would think it would only be based on relative, but in which case it was fine to do it the other way. But if it's not based on relative, then I'm changing my thought and thinking that we have to change how we do the beach ordinance, and that's why I brought it up.
Did you ask our office that question prior to today?
I never even thought of this until you brought it up, business impact up in the way you
I
described
didn't bring it up
earlier today.
I was asked.
Yeah, so based on the discussion just now, it made me think of something that I expressed. It wasn't a predetermined question. I didn't really even think of it before because there was something that was said during this meeting that made me think of that. I'm sorry if it came across in any other way.
Apology accepted.
It wasn't an apology. I'm just saying that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't intend.
Mr. Chair,
I don't believe that it came
Mr. Chair,
have said
point
that.
of order, point of order.
Point of order.
Can we take a step back and get refocused on the agenda, please?
Please. I think we're finished with the beach ordinance update. And I think we go on.
I have just clarification on one thing.
Sure.
Cabanas have a line, and then chairs can go in front of the cabanas without restrictions other than the mean high water mark.
Well,
Whatever that
it's,
is. Is
this
that
is
it?
where it's confused we permit where you serve alcohol, and that is a diagram they provide, and 20 by 40 feet, and this is where it's located on the beach. If they provide chairs of people that are not drinking alcohol on their property, we don't permit that.
Okay, so, and they don't have to abide by the line of, they just can't have alcohol, but they can have chairs and rent them.
Again, it depends on each property. I don't think I can say for all, because they each own to a certain point of sand. Some only own to the mean high water line, some own to the dunes, some own all the way to the water. Every property is different. So I can't give you a general answer to that. It's individual properties.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the next item, which is Paso Grill renourishment.
Oh,
How that is going.
I put that on the agenda. I just was hoping someone could give an update where they're at, how's it going, what's
Well,
the status?
as you can hear from Turtle Joe, a lot of it was washed away. They stalled a little bit the week after the storm came in. I was out there yesterday, back out there renourishing. They're still south of the grill. And then it's still, the deadline for them to complete the project is October, November, from what the county states, depending on any additional storms, if that would change. So the latest updates that we get, again, it's not, we push everything out and we attach to the county, because it is the county's project. Any information that we get, we push that out. So I would like to say I'm the keeper of all that information, but I just can only share what we're given the information on.
And I've gone to the county website, and it's very generic. So I was just thought the city might be getting more specifics on the.
I think Pinellas County, John Bishop, Kelly Levy, who is in their public works, works with our public works department. If we haven't been getting any inside, if there was additional conversations on that, we just are also going off in our communications manager off the county's website.
Okay.
I think they're, as far as avenues, I think they're about the 4th Avenue, that far.
Yeah.
And I would like to give some kudos out to a couple of the gentlemen that are working for the dredging people after the Tropical Storm Debbie came by. There was one of their, kind of like a snow fence that had gotten up in the dunes. And they said, we're told not to go up in the dune, but you could see that it was causing some damage. And they very, very carefully, like surgeons, got it out of there. They did a great job. That was good.
Well, those dunes are 6 months old.
Yeah. Yep. They were still being very careful.
They're little babies.
So they are.
It's very interesting. We used to put snow fences to build dunes very successfully. Not on the top of the dune, though, in the front.
This is an example of the BTR for Alden. Part of Tradewinds says cabana chair umbrella rental $20. But
Mr. Chairman, point of order. We've kind of jumped off agenda again.
We need to stay on that. I think we finished that, and we're going to move to item D, beach rights and incidents or reports.
That was an item that I requested, and there was a question about, there was a complaint there was a video, and it was discussed at a city commission meeting regarding the Tradewinds kicking some people off the beach, and then Mr. Dickman got involved, and I heard there was a positive outcome, and I think it would be worthwhile for the people of Beach Stewardship to understand what transpired there. And then there was a report at another hotel where there were chairs all the way out, and I think we've already covered it partially on what the rights are there. and then maybe any other incidents. And then beach rights may also be covering the Reddington case, but, you know, that it can be separate, whatever you want.
So you want to know about various incidents that have occurred on the beach in general, or?
Well, we normally do have a status report that shows a lot of other things, but I did flag in particular this trade winds one because it seemed very significant, where we had a hotel that evicted, told some people that they had to leave the beach. The mayor was actually present at the incident. It was a high visibility incident. It was videoed. It was discussed. And then interestingly, the sheriff's office then called the people back and apologized from what I heard. I don't want to get involved in relaying.
Yeah,
I think you were involved.
I can tell you what I know. It was a weekend. I got a call from the mayor. He was upset because apparently some members of the city who were at the beach behind the trade winds, and allegedly they were being told to move down towards the water area. I wasn't there. I didn't have much more of that. I quickly said, fine, I'll call Tradewind's attorney. I called Tradewind's attorney. I called Wayne Saunders, who was the interim city manager, told him exactly what was happening. I called the mayor back and told him what I did, and that's all I know. I know that I don't know why I also explained that, yes, that part of the conditional use permit for the trade winds had to do with providing an easement for the public, 15 feet, roughly 15 feet landward of the high water mark, which would basically be, the wet sand, to allow for that. So I don't know if there was some confusion about where that was or what happened, but I also explained that that easement's not in place until a certain time. I think it's got to be the certificate of occupancy for the first phase of the project. So those easements are not in place, but it did seem as though, the trade winds were going to honor that, that space anyway, even though the easements have not been set in place yet. Then next thing I hear is the sheriff has rescinded the trespass order against the individual. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if that's an admission of they thought they were wrong, or if they were just trying to try to alleviate, tone down the problem or the issue. I don't have any other facts beyond that, but it was on a weekend. I got a call. I took care of it the best I could.
Well, yeah, I was hoping there was an opportunity for it to be, saying job well done, because it seemed like you got involved and there was a very positive outcome. I just didn't know
what
really happened in
can't
between.
Take credit for that. I just made some phone calls. I mean, I wasn't here, so I mean, the mayor was there. Maybe his involvement ought to be. He jumped on it. He was there. So, and I don't know why the sheriff. I don't know the facts. I mean, I know that I have no indication that the trade winds are saying, we're not going to honor this area. It seemed to me like even though the easements weren't in place, that they were well aware that, like, at some point the public was going to be given an easement 15 feet above the wet sand, and that's where they seem to understand that would happen, even though the easements are not in place. Technically, they could say, please leave until the easements are in place.
So,
And then, of course, that development's under appeal by the Protect St. Pete Beach folks. And so, that will stay everything. So the easements won't be in place for much longer period of time.
not to dig up, I mean, this is going back to the beach rights thing then. So, to generalize this, I didn't think it was due to any confusion about the trade winds buffer, due to the easement. So it's of your statement now, right now, is though that really any of these hotels could be trespassing people if we're on the beach?
That is, yes, if it's private property, yes.
But because I've watched this video multiple times, and I think I've discussed it with you, back when they were rescinding the customary use ordinance, I think you had said the beach has been public, it's always been public. What did that mean?
So, again, all right, so
I don't mean to narrow it down to one conversation.
let's talk about one thing
Yeah.
first. You wanted to know about incidences. That's all I know about that incident. I was glad that it got resolved. I didn't try to spend any more of the city's money on it than I needed to.
Thank you.
I'm glad it got resolved.
Thank you.
I don't know of any other incidences. I've heard, you always have peak times and holidays where people are, Silver Sands was upset about, maybe July 4th, things like that. But I think if you want a procedure in place where you get reports back, I think that's, we can put that in place. But that's the only one that I personally was involved in.
Thank you.
At all.
Thank you.
Now, going to your question about Reddington Beach decision, which I think is what you're talking about, because it has to do with a legal doctrine called the customary use doctrine. So that comes from, let me just get this up here, from a case, a Florida Supreme Court case decided a while ago in Daytona Beach versus Tonorama. And it said that it allows the public to continue to use the dry sand above the mean high water line for recreational use where such use is shown to be ancient, reasonable, without interruption, and free from dispute. So that case had been on the books for quite a while in Florida. Since then, several localities, counties, and also cities adopted customary use ordinances. There's some in the Panhandle, some cases that were going on in the Panhandle, Walton Beach, things like that. Then in 2018, the Florida legislature adopted a statute under 163.035, which precluded, which was another one of many preemptions that happens in Tallahassee, preempting local governments from enacting customary use ordinances and putting in place a judicial process for adopting an ordinance. So it didn't 100% preclude it, but it established a procedure where if you wanted to adopt a customary use ordinance, you would go through a machinations of public hearings and data collection and things like that to establish the ancient and historical use of the beach. Then you would have to present it to a circuit court judge and have it blessed, and then it would go into place. So at that time in 2018, several local governments, many of them, because it created quite a bit of confusion. I don't know if you remember that, because all of a sudden people were putting up fences and signs and things like that all over Florida on the beach. Like, okay, we own the beach now. And localities were adopting ordinances very quickly because there was a enactment time. I think it might have been June 1st of that year or something. So everybody was trying to quickly enact an ordinance. And Reddington Beach was actually St. Pete Beach enacted one very quickly, a very basic ordinance. Reddington Beach as well adopted one. Reddington Beach ultimately was sued, as well as St. Pete Beach was sued by the Silver Sands, and the city commission with ours ultimately decided to rescind that ordinance rather than have a protracted legal argument or legal case. Reddington Beach, however, since 2018 and 2019 has been litigating this ordinance to keep their ordinance in place. Since that time, there were cases filed in state court, there were cases filed in a case filed in federal court. The state court action was amended to add federal cases. They both went to the federal court. Ultimately, the plaintiffs prevailed at the district court level, and then it went up to the 11th Circuit, which is the next level below the Supreme Court of the United States. So it went to the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit reversed it and sent it back down to the district court, the Middle District Court of Florida, consolidated the cases, and found in favor of the city, based on a variety of different things. There was another minor allegation in it, but it doesn't have to do with customary use. It had more to do with someone being removed from a board who was litigating against the city. But with regard to this order, which yeah,
Sign, she didn't sign.
yeah. So this is a very interesting order. Because it was remanded down from the 11th Circuit, I'm not sure they have much of an appeal to go back to the 11th Circuit, but this is a 53-page order. I'm happy to send it to you all, but it is part of the argument. The judge goes through a really good job of laying out the procedural history and then the analysis of all the elements that came out of that Florida Supreme Court case that I talked about, where it talks about ancient and historical and without controversy. It's very similar to the doctrine of prescriptive easement. I don't know if you've heard of that, where if somebody has used something for a long time, like to access to their house, crossed over your boundary and can prove that, then it becomes an automatic easement. It's somewhat analogous to that. So the court had laid out and went through all those elements of ancient and historical, and of course the city paid a lot of money for a consultant, a historian, to collect all this information, which is really necessary in order to show, like going back to when, before the time the city was incorporated, showed how the public has used the beach for recreational purposes consistently and constantly. And so I don't know that they have the ability to go back up to the 11th Circuit on appeal, just because it was already there and it was sent down. But they may find some grounds to continue to litigating this. But this is a very important order. Frankly, it's surprising a lot of attorneys, because this is what happens in court sometimes. You get a judge that feels that this is how it should be, analyzed, and it came out. Because a lot of attorneys at the time, when the state law was put in place, read it to mean that you can only have in place an ordinance for affirmative defenses. But this court has gone through a really good job of analyzing it. So, we'll see where this one goes from there. But at this point in time, the city has prevailed. What is this, 5 years later? Who knows how much it cost them. But they have prevailed with their ordinance to be able to allow the public to use the sandy beach landward of the mean high water line for recreational purposes. So,
Is there any measurement on that, or just?
No, it's the sandy beach. The ordinance, I could pull it up and look at it, but I believe it's just, so there's a definition for sandy beach, which is basically from the water up to wherever any vegetation starts. And so usually it's something like that.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it's a really interesting case. It's right in your backyard. I've personally long felt like, okay, why not? As time goes by, you lose historical knowledge in the city. I know you have a great historic museum and folks that do that kind of thing, but a lot of this was based on just testimony from people that have been around in Reddington Beach for a long, long time, remembering when I was a kid and I used to come here, in 1950s or something like that. The same thing happened up in the Panhandle when they had to do a long collection of information. They even found paintings in the Smithsonian archive of the Panhandle beaches to help bolster their argument that it had customarily and anciently been used without interruption for time immemorial, and that's what you have to argue. But now there's a statutory, and part of the reasoning from the court was that, and the plaintiffs in the court agreed that the state wouldn't have enacted a process for allowing for customary use ordinances to be put into place if they didn't believe that there are some instances where it should be the case. So they didn't totally ban customary use ordinances, they just put in place a process, which to my knowledge no one's gone through that process yet. But I think that was used as support for showing that it wasn't banned. The state of Florida has a long history of allowing the public to use the beach. So it's a very good case to read. I'll be happy to forward it to all of you.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of it's a lot of legalese, but it's not really that hard. You don't have to be a lawyer to read it. I mean, it's very interesting because I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this. I'm kind of curious to see what they do with it.
Yeah,
See what we do with this.
exactly. I read the case and I did find it fascinating, but one of the things that caught me by surprise before when you were talking about it takes an easement for us to go on the beach is that as I understood it, the state bill that created that procedure for creating ordinances for customary use, a lot of people I thought had misinterpreted it because customary use existed just the way prescriptive easements existed. But in the same way, if the state said, okay, now there's going to be a procedure for you to take a prescriptive easement and document it, it seemed like that really what that state bill did was say, if you have a customary use, here's the procedures to document it. And so that it didn't take away our customary use rights, and that, that question's still open. And so, I mean, I remember Elise, the attorney for Trade Winds, even saying she didn't want to get into whether it was customary use or not. Just regardless of that, she was reserving the 15-foot easement. So that's why, I think that even prior to this case, I think that the customary use is still a question. And then now that we have this case, it even bolsters us further. I leave it to the city commission maybe to figure out the mechanics of that. But
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a doctrine. It's a well-known doctrine and goes back to English law, doctrine of customary use. Back when people would, block up creeks and then they'd go to the king and say, we customarily use this creek, we need to be able to use it. That's where it comes from. So it's still a legal doctrine that applies. It's just that the state exercises its authority to manage it,
thank you.
Okay.
Jennifer, I think IACO puts this report, this is the report
Quarterly
from, the quarterly report from the police department. And I know July isn't here, and I believe the video you're talking about did it happen in July?
I don't remember exactly.
I've never noticed a trespass warning or a trespass citation on one of these. And my question is, how often is that? I saw that on Backdoor or wherever. Someone brought it to my attention. Nextdoor, yeah. I don't know. I'm not a social media guy. But do you just make sure they include trespass warnings and like that, just so we know if this is a widespread problem? I did a ride along with the department up and down the beach, and we talked about that, and I asked how many times they get called, and he couldn't recall one of doing that. This was before the Trade Winds incident. So I would just be interested, at least on the beach, right? I know there could be trespassing other places on the city, but where a private owner is trying to enforce private rights, I just, how often does it happen?
I don't think very often, but the sheriff's
Keep our eyes
actually
on it.
going to be here at city commission meeting in September because their contract's up for renewal, so
Oh,
I'm asking them to do a little bit of a presentation. And if that's next on the agenda, the quarterly report. I know IACO puts this together, so I just wanted to highlight a few things. I know you guys have it. Obviously, this is through April through June, so anything in July wouldn't be on here. Special events, or as far as weddings, 81 total for this quarter. This is genuinely our slowest season because no one wants to sweat horribly on the beach on their wedding day. But so this is our low season, I guess, for beach weddings. And for years I was doing the beach wedding permits, so I could say to that. And then I'll get into the citations. I just want to compare because I think it's important to note. We've done a lot with the sheriff's office, and the commission has allotted certain dollar amounts for us to have extra patrol on the beach. And the amount of warnings and citations that we have done in the last year has exponentially increased. And I think Wayne Saunders at the time at commission meeting also brought this up. So I just want to compare last year, because I pulled up that report, in this year. This current year, we did 4 citations and 180 warnings, where last year we did 6 citations and 83 warnings. So we've over doubled the amount of warnings, and it depends on what the situation is and where they do the citations and where the warnings go. I think, from what I hear from the sheriff, is they like to be able to inform people that might not be from here. You can't have dogs on the beach. They might issue a warning, and then they're in the system, and that's where the citation comes the next time. So it's educational is how they see warnings a lot of times. But the increase from last year to this year, I think, is substantial, and it has been in other quarters as well. And I think IACO provides you that, but I just wanted to kind of hone in on that. And then I just wanted to highlight the beach ambassador training in June. I think it was well attended. So I'm excited for everything that everybody's doing regarding that. And I think we're on a good path to where we're at with some of these volunteer groups. So I just wanted to mention that on top of everything on the quarterly report. If you have any questions regarding the quarterly report, I can attempt to answer.
I don't mean to focus too much on just one aspect, but how many ambassadors how many people have been through the ambassador training and
That training, I believe, was over 25.
Okay.
Is
I
what
was there.
What I got from IACO after, yeah.
Yep.
So, a
And
very good
I've
first
done a
start.
beach walk too. And just, it's interesting when you get a blue vest and a badge, saying the city and all that. We were, my wife and I did it, and we had several people come up, hey, what are you doing, like that, and were very engaging and very appreciative. And then when we did find issues, there were, oh, I didn't realize that, and they quickly addressed it. So as long as you come up with a positive attitude towards the public, we didn't have any issues.
And these are all turtle-related issues or any issues on the beach?
We walked up, there was a glass bottle, I think, there was a couple dogs, right, where we addressed that and informed them that there's a dog beach that they should go to, and none of them played I have a service dog, they didn't play that. Now, there are legitimate service dogs, I'm not trying to play down that, for the record,
Very
but
serious.
it was a very positive experience, and I encourage you all to, go through the training, get a blue vest, and walk the beach.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, I think this gets us down to the item F, which we actually already talked about as far as the CO planning. And John, thank you very much for what you had done, because he was getting the permits, working with the city. That's harder than planting the sea oats. I can tell you that right now.
The only thing on the CO planning that I wanted to add, and I communicated this to Ayoko, but I'm not sure that she'll be there because I think she's out of town with an emergency, is that there's a prescribed area that's on the last page of the agenda, or the packet, which is the area of Upham, and it borders on an area where I've previously observed people moving. Now that I look, maybe I've learned that it was fountain grass, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was sea oats. I'm still not sure. But they were sort of making a dune or a marsh where there wasn't one and blocking people. And so I just want to make sure that this project very much stays within purely that Upham Beach area and doesn't go to the sides. It only is the Upham. I don't think we want to contribute to putting dunes where there aren't dunes on the map. It's on that map that's in the attachment. So as long as we stick there, we're fine.
If you don't, I was involved, I worked with the county and the city, and Ayako and Mandy have been very helpful, just passing that on to Jennifer. It's going on the existing vegetation lines. It will not be encroaching into existing path or access, anything like that, and it's staying on public property, not private property.
Yeah, great.
Right. To do that, the private,
Yeah.
private property, it'd have to go through the same process we went through to get that. And by the way, the plant material is from the county, and they do an annual giveaway of sea oats. And anybody can apply for this, both public and private. And, they do this, it starts every spring, then you have to come up with an application and do exactly what you're doing and show where you're doing it. They actually come out, they approve it. We worked with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, got their approval, got the county, all of that. But no access will be cut.
Great.
I saw your email
Okay.
to Ayako, with your concerns. So
Okay.
we made sure that your concerns were addressed.
I guess you saw that as it wasn't a sunshine, it wasn't as a beach steward, it was as a planting person.
Yeah,
guess.
it's all good. It's all good.
Thanks.
All right, now we're going to get into our additional agenda items. I think the first one was the process of adding.
Yeah, I flagged that because I thought that the process was that Ayoko sent out an email to all of us asking for items for the agenda. And I know that Commissioner Stevens here today just mentioned, for instance, he put Pastor Grill on the agenda. But when I sent my response in, I got an email back from Mr. McConnell saying, as we've discussed before, you cannot on your own add things to the agenda without the consent and approval of a majority of the board members. The best way to achieve this would be to raise any issues you would like added to the next agenda prior to the meeting ending. And then he gave a reason so the staff could prepare, et cetera. But I don't understand that to be the case. I know we all try to do that. We have ideas for next meeting. It's not on the agenda where we have an item called next meeting's agenda. Maybe we need to add that. But that's not what our current implementation is. So I was just taken back that, and this is not the first time it's happened where I've submitted things and didn't see them on the agenda. So I was just confused and I'm trying to understand or trying to clarify that I think that the agenda process is, Ayoko sends out an email, we respond, we don't see everybody else because of the sunshine law, and then it goes on the agenda, and then it's approved by the other beach stewards during the action item of approving the agenda. So that's what I thought the process would be.
So generally, in the board meetings, we do come to consensus. Ayako's new to running these meetings, so I think she's learning the ways. But typically, in the meetings, we do a follow-up. I write all the notes of what you guys talked about, and then at the end, I could say, let me just confirm what I heard that you guys want to talk about at the next meeting. If there's anything else, we add that to it. And then it would be the city staff that puts out the agenda. Now, of course, you can always add things to the agenda like you just did this morning. That's on there, knowing that we may or may not have the answers to that. So I would just say, at the conclusion of this meeting, I will reiterate my notes that I took based on the discussions we had today, and to see if there's anything else you wanted to add to make sure it's on the next agenda.
Then note also, the things I was adding were all things that occurred since the last meeting. They were about an incident at Trade Winds, an incident at Dolphin Village, later on it was the Reddington. And so I just wanted I wanted people to be prepared. So I figured rather than waiting, and because I got an email, it was specifically one sentence long that said, what items would you like on the agenda? I thought that meant we're supposed to respond with what items we like on the agenda. And I was very taken back to have legal tell me that that's not the process.
Well, think of it from a common sense point of view, that if all 5 of you forwarded 5 items that you wanted on the agenda, that's 25 items that staff would have to be, including legal, would have to be prepared for, and you would have a very large agenda. So typically, under your Robert's Rules of Order, you would bring up things as you did at the beginning of the meeting and say, I'd like to add this. Are there any amendments to the agenda? And you'd add it and you'd discuss it as a group. And then, as Jennifer mentioned, we take notes during the meeting and bring things back. But it's just from a management point of view, if everybody submitted items in between meetings, it could become unmanageable.
Well, IOCA's been doing this for months now, and it hasn't been 25 items. It's been a manageable number, and I don't know why we would change it. We didn't have a discussion item to change it. That's why I was surprised by Mr. McConnell's email, because we have a procedure in place.
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah, I didn't know who was going to be here today. Thank you. I didn't know who was going to be here today.
Yeah, but I think he made the right call. I
So
support
IOCA's
his decision.
So
I think it's a burden on this committee, on staff, if it's just open-ended for everybody to just submit items randomly that they want to have on the agenda. Additionally, when is the cutoff time? When does the agenda get published? I mean, there's notices that have to be done. So I'm sure the clerk's office would be a little bit concerned about it, because there are notice deadlines when you have to publish agendas and things like that. So it does place quite a bit of work on staff to do it that way.
Well, exactly. That's why IOCA puts a deadline on it. And again, the idea was that rather than us coming to the meeting and try to add items to the agenda to have people not prepared, by us responding 2 weeks ahead, that gives time for it to go in the notice, for the public to come and provide comments if it's relevant to them, and for everybody to be prepared. So I don't know why we're changing it, or if we are changing it.
I don't know that you're changing it. I think that was how it was set up, or the way that I would think that it was set up. But I mean, certainly you all can talk right now and decide that, yeah, it's okay for all of us to send items to that. But I mean, you can't, if it's a legal item, you can't expect us to be ready for it. I mean, I'm not gonna just stop everything that we're doing just to, answer 20 legal issues.
And they weren't all legal issues, yeah, sure.
I know, but I mean, I'm just thinking ahead, if everybody started doing that,
So
Okay.
is it each committee can choose its own, or do we have a standard for the city?
The way that public meetings happen is that for you all to talk about things as a body, you have to do it here, okay? If you decide that you want to adopt rules of procedure, and that your rules of procedure allow for sending the city without copying the other members or anything like that, because you don't want to have a sunshine law violation.
Right.
Things to be put on the agenda. It just doesn't, because what if another board member has an objection to that and doesn't want to have that on there?
That's covered at the beginning of the meeting.
Let me finish. So I'm just saying that's why it's really better to do it at your meetings, to talk about it and say, I'd like to have this on the agenda at the next meeting. That way it's open to everybody. We can talk about it. We can decide, the scope of that, how much work has to go into it. You remember the city staff has a lot of committees and boards that it has to staff. And so if that type of procedure was put in place for everybody, it would be a lot of work.
Since this is an open meeting, let me just ask then, did anyone else, when they send in a comment, get the same response?
Can I?
Okay.
So we need to decide, right, since I've joined, I received an email from IACO saying, hey, what do you want on the agenda? That's been kind of the going rhythm or procedure. Do we want to continue that, or do we want to change and go by council saying things to be put on we should be saying at the end of this meeting for next? And we also have the ability at the next meeting, when we approve the agenda, as Member Kurzman or Vice Chair Kurzman has done, add at that time.
Well, I think we
do we want to continue or not? But we also have to take, if we do it as we've been doing it, we could put a lot of stress on the staff if we all came up with 5 different issues.
But we don't.
It doesn't typically happen, but
No, and it's been customary for that little statement to go out with each mailing I've ever seen. But I think I asked for one thing to be put on it.
Has anyone,
And if it's,
go ahead.
I questioned that when I first saw it, because there's a sunshiny thing in there. So I would bow to legal advice on that.
Well, and I agree with that, because one of my concerns, and this is also something that I, like a lot of municipal lawyers, are struggling with, the same thing with social media, because you have this, as you know, like, sunshine law can be violated by using a conduit, okay? And so if one person says, I'm gonna tell staff to put this item on there, and then the item comes, then it's published, then it's, okay, is that a way of communicating with other board members, even though it's going through staff? I don't know. I mean, I get worried about that. That's why I prefer that things are talked about in the public and you follow that order. Now, of course, if there's something where an emergency happens, or there's something really big and dramatic that happens in between meetings, that I think there should be some flexibility for that where it's really necessary to talk about this and do that, a procedure. But I do worry about, someone making an argument against the city saying that, okay, if you're asking board members like what to put on the agenda, and then somehow that information gets to another board member, is that using the city as a conduit to have a conversation outside of the sunshine?
But that's not what's happening.
Go ahead, John.
That's not what's happening. I mean, I didn't see the agenda until it was published, and I saw it at the same time the public did. And to really
What if
understand.
staff accidentally said, like, forwarded that email to another board member or something like that, or said, or had a conversation with another board member and said, well, committee member so-and-so wants this on there.
There will always be issues, like there was an issue about sea oats, and then it does get forwarded somehow, but that's because it was material to the effort. I guess to understand, though, the real scope of the issue, if there really is an issue. I mean, I've sent them in a couple times, and I've had 2 occurrences where my items didn't make it onto the agenda, ahead of time. Has anyone else, has everyone here sent in items for the agenda? You've all sent in items. Have you ever gotten that response that it's inappropriate to send in the items? And I don't feel that this was a general policy. I feel this was specific to me getting that email. And that's why I was a little disturbed by it. But I want to understand it. Since this is now the open meeting, was anyone else told that the procedure is they're not supposed to provide these answers to IOCO's email each week, each meeting?
It could be sticky in my mind, but there's another problem. If something, as Council said, if it's time critical, then there has to be a way. And our time between meetings is so long that if things are important, we wait 3 months to deal with them. I don't know if that's so good.
I agree.
So the other issue is, you know, if, do you want to kind of ask committee members to show some restraint maybe? Because if one member happens to be prolific at requesting things,
Okay. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Right, and I would just ask that if there are agenda items, that it's not assigned, that staff assigns who is going to be speaking on it.
Be what?
That staff assigns who's going to be speaking on whatever issue it was.
Right, they may not be possible to put everything that's on the agenda, may not
So
possible.
that was the misunderstanding at the last meeting, that certain people were going to be here, and it was not communicated
Okay.
that way, so.
All right, that addresses that for me. That item that I added.
Yeah.
All right, and our next one is communications.
Yeah, I added that because, not to be prolific in my items that I add, but this has been something that we've discussed, and maybe it needs to be an item on each agenda. You know, when we talk about incidents or communications, after the last meeting, Jennifer issued a memo to the staff, which looked like it would be very positive to help in making sure the beach stewards were put in the loop on certain things. I haven't studied it to see if it really categorized this particular area. But for instance, at one of the city commission meetings that I was watching, someone came forward and they said they had written a letter and sent a video about boorish and loudish behavior on the beach and peeing in this, just a whole bunch of things, and they wanted to make sure it was addressed. Now, I don't think our ordinance has boorish and loudish in there. I thought I had a good vocabulary. I didn't even know what either of those words meant, I confess. I looked them up. I'm like, oh, that's bad. And so this is the kind of thing, though, that we ought to know, I think. I don't know why they didn't include us when they were saying, hey, these are the things happening on the beach that upset us. Why aren't you addressing the city? So those also would be the kind of things that I would hope would be forwarded to us. And again, it doesn't mean that we're in the loop, that we're stopping progress. It just means that we might look at it and go, oh, gee, we ought to consider it, or at least make sure we have the same information the city commission has. And I didn't see it in their packet either, so I didn't really even know what the links were to watch the video or to understand what the whole concern was. So again, I'm just looking for how do we redefine the rules, or what do we do?
I think when it comes to legal issues, legal should be handling that.
Is that a legal
It's
issue?
not something that this board has to determine.
I didn't know that it was a legal issue, though.
I don't know, you're just telling me that there was a complaint with some illegal activity on the beach.
Well, I don't know if it's I mean,
Okay, well, that.
Is it an
that to me
ordinance violation,
Would
or-
be something I would send to legal to have them make that determination first.
And so would beach stewardship, who's responsible for making sure that, you know, the health and welfare and everything on the beach is good, shouldn't be in the loop to know that these incidents occur?
I don't know if I may. I don't know if I think would be effective for us in real time or near real time to get every complaint sent to us,
Fine.
which is what I heard. That I don't know if that's what you meant. I do know that, you know, we do get this, which is a report of that, of police activity. I would say, you know, perhaps if there are other complaints, could be included in a report, but I don't know if I need to be told every time there is a complaint of bad behavior. And if I remember, because I saw that meeting as well, you know, you had somebody come up at general comments, which is, I don't know.
I think it had to do with the Silver Sands.
It was the Silver
Portland's
Sands
July 4th
complaint, right.
complaints, and they're right next to Upham Beach. I mean, yeah. I mean,
I don't know if.
I wasn't looking to react. I don't I just wanted to understand and say, hey, maybe there's something we should be putting in our ordinances. We still have an outstanding ordinance. You know, is there something that we're missing that we might want to address? And so I just thought it'd be helpful to know. I didn't need to know it real time, but even as of today, I have no idea what really they were complaining about.
I think John is right, you're getting a quarterly report that gives
Which
you
John?
every activity. Oh, John without the H. that provides that with you. It sounds like we want to add trespassing on there.
If it's not already, I don't know.
I don't
would
know.
assume the police would put that in
I
there.
would assume too, but I
I don't think there were any police, anything happened from that. I mean, I know Silver Sands, they're in a difficult,
Yes.
if you're up against a public beach, you're up against a public beach. That's the way it is. On 4th of July, everybody goes to the beach. They have their own security guards. We received a letter that, I recall receiving a letter from their association. I'm not sure who it was addressed to, if I was copied on it, but it outlined a whole bunch of grievances, that horrible things that happen, people swimming in their pool, their security guard being accosted and so forth and so on. I don't know that any of that is true or not true. But as far as I know, there was not any police activity as a result of that, was there? Jennifer, do you recall? They may be, sometimes the sheriff, so the beach is very difficult for the sheriff. The sheriff is always going to be concerned about violating civil rights. And so when the sheriff, who has contracts with multiple municipalities, and especially when you're dealing with the beach, where are the property lines? Not everybody's legal description goes down to the mean high water line. Some of them do, some of them don't. And then some of them, if you take the county beach, the property lines are not east-west, they're angled. So when the deputies get to the beach, I think that they just do the best they can to try to solve the problem without getting their department into a problem, because it's not easy. It's not like if you're in a property in a neighborhood where you can easily determine if somebody is trespassing or not. It's just not as easy as you think it is. On the beach, it's difficult.
Yeah, and again, I'm not trying to even get into the details of every little incident. It was more, there was a general complaint to the city commission, and that's why I was thinking that the beach steward should be.
I think that was just a follow-up to the letter, actually, because it was very similar things. And, and I feel for Silver Sands because they're in between a resort and Upham Beach. And Upham Beach is a beautiful beach, but like all beaches, population's growing in Florida, it is, but beaches are not growing, unfortunately.
I hope everyone understands, there was no beach there years ago.
Yeah, it
Zero.
used to be the aquarium, and it was created, And there's lots of controversy. Silver Sands is an interesting one because there is an ECL line there. They contest it. So,
It's on the Aquatarium deed, but, okay.
I know. I've seen the photographs.
All right. And I believe, Andrew, you covered the Reddington issue.
Yeah,
very
sorry,
well.
I jumped ahead.
No,
Ah,
that's okay.
it
At
linked.
the right time.
I will send it to you when you have time. Nice 53-page read.
Definitely.
Double space, though.
I blow them off. I have a big screen.
I skipped some sections, but I still got the gist, I think.
Okay. I think we're at adjournment.
Second?
Yes.
Hold on. I just want to discuss possible items that for the next agenda. That's okay.
Good.
The audit on the lighting, obviously we could send that to you once we get it, but I think I'll put that as an agenda to discuss. Typically at their next one, I'm guessing we have Turtle Joe and Teresa come to do a full report regarding turtle activity for the season and give us numbers, right? Put that on your calendar, Joe?
I can give you up to date, like current, but if you want.
No, I think our next meeting is going to be almost at the conclusion of turtle season. So typically you guys come in and give us a full seasonal report.
Yep.
I think it would be good to have Mike Clark or someone from Public Works speaking directly about the renourishment project about the county so they can answer some of those questions that you guys had. Did I miss anything? Beach ordinance will
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. And in between.
Have that as standing item
Yeah.
until it gets passed. And then for the lighting, if you don't mind, it's just not the audit, but then I know, again, you guys are busy.
No, it's okay.
Follow up on the review of the model ordinance and how it could be adopted
Okay.
here in the city, which I know I think John Withenage mentioned that we already have some things and how it's going to blend together into a standalone wildlife lighting ordinance.
Correct. So, and in the meantime, I will get you guys the cases. I'll send it through staff so that you all get it individually, not collectively. I'll also provide all of you, John brought up the impact statement, the law, Florida law on doing the impact statement for, and I'll share that with you so you have it ahead of time and you can read it and see what it entails. And then, and then we'll look into the beach lighting model ordinance for you.
Thank you.
Anything we're missing?
I'd also like to add further discussion. Maybe it'll be covered by the city commission by that time, but a further discussion on the customary use or writing the decision, like what steps we might take. Because, maybe there's things people should be, I'm going to be meeting with somebody this afternoon that has some old maps and taking pictures of those from an older couple, but really guidance on testimony or what we can do with these people.
My concern before jumping into, hey, let's solve it, let's make sure what problem are we trying to solve? Hence where I was asking how much trespassing, what are we actually seeing? Because the path that leads down is long and expensive to go down a customary use conversation. I'm not saying no, but
Depends which way. That's
I
what
would
the
say,
discussion would be.
let's where I just heard you saying, hey, I have maps and like that, which would be going down the path to actually do it. Let's define if we're really having the problem and do we need to go through that. Then if we said yes, then I would say, hey, let's go collect evidence, right? We would start the commission we would give a recommendation to the commission to go down that path. But I would want to kind of understand, are we having a customary use issue?
Yeah.
I've not heard of it yet, but that doesn't mean it's not happening.
I've heard of it a lot.
So here's what's with customary use. I mean, obviously, I was born and raised in Florida. I love the beaches. So I have had this conversation with various commissions since the ordinance the statute was enacted, and I think there's always been this. It seems like the philosophy is either like, yeah, I'm for that, or let's just try to do it through our CUP process and get easements that way. And so it's tricky because it's just everybody's different, and the commission as a whole so far hasn't seemed to want to take it up as an official thing because of it may send off signals that we're heading in that direction. I mean, my feeling is, as I said earlier, has been it doesn't hurt to collect information as long as you do it in a methodical way, because you don't really have to enact the ordinance in order to do it. But my concern is that as folks move away or pass away, you lose that historical knowledge of the beach, and I have expressed that over the years to commissioners when, either collectively or individually, and I can't push policy, I'm not going to, but I do have to point out that is a step in the process, is being able to document the historical use of the beach. And like Reddington Beach hired a person who was a historian and knew how to collect all that information. But maybe each one of you should speak with whoever appointed you and just find out where they stand on this, because it could be an awkward public conversation that may send off signals that which will be misunderstood by people out there who will then file lawsuits that are.
And what's your time frame?
Yeah.
I mean, historically, Casa Grill has been a fish camp where people pulled their boats in and cleaned their fish and cooked them.
No doubt about it.
So,
No doubt about it.
I think that when you read the case, though, it says that antique, ancient use is really about 100 years.
Yeah, it's
yeah, ancient means a week ago.
But just to assuage some fears also, I think one of the reasons I brought it up now is because I think one of the guidances I heard at either city commission meeting or somewhere else was, let's wait and see how Reddington goes before we discuss it again. And that's the only reason why I'm discussing it again. And the other thing is, I think that, you know, for the whole beach, there's one unique area, Lot M and N, that I think there already was some cases that have already decided where that stands. So there's concern on there, you know, maybe, I don't know if that's affecting some of the discussion right now, but I think that one is a little different than the rest of the beach.
Maybe.
Just mentioning that.
Maybe, yeah.
But I like your idea of, or your recommendation of reaching out to each who appointed us and
And just talk to them.
Have the
find out
con-
I already
where
did,
they're at.
yeah. I've
I
already-
wouldn't want to put them on the spot at a public meeting and have, because, you know, it sends off, it may be interpreted by people who live on the beach as, oh my God, they're going to take, because that's what this was. This was a lawsuit in Redding Beach. When they enacted this, they said this is unconstitutional taking of my private property. And can you imagine how much money they've spent on this lawsuit? I mean, and you just don't want to, just because you're starting to collect data, you don't want to, it doesn't mean that you're actually going to go through with it, but you want to have the data in place. That was just my suggestion, because I worry about, as time goes by, you know, you have 20 years from now, you have a whole different group of people living here.
Yeah, don't know anything. Thanks.
With different ideas of what a beach is supposed to be.
Well, the beach might not be here.
yeah,
Yeah, the beach
Yeah.
probably won't
It'd be a different kind of beach.
one big storm.
solid concrete.
Okay, are we all clear now on adjournment? Good, good to go.
Let's discuss it.
This
I'm good.
meeting is adjourned.
Seconded it. Thank you.